It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Herrman.
Hi, I'm Gary Herrman, and this is the Forum on Eagle Television. Great to have you watching along. We have a great guest, somebody brand new to our community, somebody very important to this show, and probably very important to you as well. His name is Edward Herrman. He's the new CEO of HaysMed. Good to have you on our program.
Thank you, Gary. Please refer to me as Eddie.
Eddie,
Yes,
I've heard
absolutely.
that, but for a professional show like this, we got to at least start with the official name.
Absolutely.
Eddie, tell me a little bit about yourself. Because with a name like Herrman, you could almost have been raised in Ellis County.
Yeah. Actually, I felt like I partially was growing up, actually in Rush County. So my background is nursing. That's what I started out in healthcare. Started out actually as a certified nurse's assistant, and became a bachelor's in nursing, and then have just kind of worked my way up through the ranks to get to be president where I was at previously in Oklahoma. And then we had this phenomenal opportunity to come here to Hays, and with the University of Kansas relationship with that health system, it was just a very attractive opportunity for me and my family. And like you said, I feel like I came from this area. My parents were both born and raised in La Crosse, Kansas. And so I have pretty much spent every holiday, every harvest, every opening weekend of pheasant season for the majority of my life coming up here and hunting and spending time with family and free labor on the farm every now and then.
I remember that free labor part on the farm.
Absolutely.
Well, it's good to have you here. You've been here, I think official start date was October 26th, the end
Yes,
of
sir.
October. What have you learned so far?
Well, what I've learned is that Hays as a community is a really giving community. That's one of the things with our foundation. I think it was within the first probably 2 weeks of me getting here that I have to go and present as if I had something to do with it.
Yeah.
But it's a great foundation group that we have to work with. You know, a large check towards one of our foundation goals that we have with our technology campaign fund, and that to me is just amazing. You know, Enid was probably where I came from, a little over double the size of Enid from a population standpoint, and a lot of the same makeup. Oil and gas, agriculture is really what made up that community and what drove it. A lot of what drives Hays, but the givingness of people here is just above and beyond anything you see out of a community even double, 3, 4 times the size of Hays. So like I tell everyone, a lot of people say they come to Hays and they don't have plans on staying, and then they stay for the rest of their life because of the people.
I can see that. I know why that happens, because it's a great place. But why does, and there may be some people out watching and going, why does that giving, that type of thing, make a difference?
Yeah.
Because you kind of think, boy, that's what happens everywhere. You and I both know it
Sure,
doesn't.
no.
But how does that make a difference at HaysMed?
Well, so what it does is it allows us to be able to provide technologies as well as platforms and education for our staff that we wouldn't be able to provide otherwise. I think the technology campaign is a good example. When we need pieces of equipment like a new CT scan that allows us to look at your heart in a 3D modality and be able to actually look through the vessels and your arteries, that comes at a cost. And in healthcare, for a not-for-profit, we don't typically make that much of a bottom line to always cover those things. So it allows us to be able to provide the community a technology that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Well, I know there's some people that say, boy, you're always spending money, building, doing new things, but yet when you're sick, you really want that stuff.
Sure you do. It keeps our community from having to travel too. The other piece too is we're the tertiary facility for Western Kansas.
Meaning?
It means we provide that higher level care that isn't provided everywhere. So a good example would be we have Dr. Durham coming back in. He's a heart surgeon. So we'll have the heart program started back up in April. Well, in the meantime, we've had this gap of about 1.5 years or 2 years. That means everybody in Western Kansas had to go east. They had to go somewhere to get that heart surgery done. And if you needed it in an emergent fashion, there was no option for you in Western Kansas. And we should have that. Our community members deserve to have that. And so that's why we always continue to strive to provide that higher level of care that they may not be able to provide somewhere like a Ransom or Larned or Great Bend or somewhere like that. That's our role. Our role is to fill that gap so that
Really
they
for
don't
all
have,
of Western Kansas?
All of Western Kansas. Realistically, between Hays and Garden City is probably one of the next largest to us. We have to fill that gap for all of Western Kansas. And we have over 20 critical access hospitals that are aligned to our facility. So we've got a lot of expectations to meet.
As I understand, you've been trying to get out to some of those hospitals because we've been trying to get together on this program, and it says, Eddie's been here. You've been around visiting some of those hospitals. What have you learned in that process?
Well, I've learned that in those smaller communities, it's vital to have health care. It is a fabric that allows that community to continue to exist. I would say for many of those communities, if they lost that ability to have health care locally, that could really be the unraveling of their community. And so I understand how temperamental that can be and how vital it is. And for us to be able to go and provide specialty services closer to them is something that we always strive to do. We can't always meet the needs because we do have some limited resources in some of our specialties, but we sure try to make it as convenient and easy access as we possibly can.
One of the things I know with your nursing background, you probably had to walk in and take a look, say, where are we and how are we taking care? I've personally had some friends that have been in the hospital, and the nursing department did a fantastic job. You come from the professional side of that, the operational side of that. Is that something you looked at right off the start?
Sure. I think for me it's natural on the interior clinic side of things or the clinical side of things to evaluate that always first because it's more natural for me. You know, the nice thing about coming in, even as I was looking at it, Hays was not broken by any means. HaysMed has done a phenomenal job of growing and meeting the community needs. So really I was looking at it from my perspective of coming from other systems. What value could I bring to just make HaysMed even better at what it is that we're doing? How can we be more efficient? How can we give easier access to patients? And so those are some of the pieces that I look at from that standpoint, as well as what are our resources and what are our needs. You know, recruitment out to rural America is not always easy, especially on the physician side of things. And so that's where I go out and I've made the tours because I need to understand the communities that we help serve. And I need to understand what are the community's expectations of us at HaysMed. And then that helps me determine where do we go, where do we recruit to. I also need to know from the community standpoint, what are our schools like? What's the infrastructure like? What do we have from a retail perspective? What are the things that make Hays stand out from other communities? And so that's a big piece in the beginning. Besides the internal, you have to do that external evaluation because I have to know what it is that sets us apart from our competitors that are trying to recruit the same people we're trying to recruit.
That leads into a question I had about KU Med.
Yes.
You see, you see HaysMed, but then you also see KU, a part of the KU affiliation.
Yes.
What does that mean to most people? I mean,
well, I would say, you know, it's we just had the first year anniversary, and so for me, it's within that first 4 months of my start here. What it really means is that you're going to have a much more seamless transition as a patient, regardless of your needs. So if you need someone who's what we would call a super subspecialty, then they have that available in Kansas City at the University of Kansas Hospital. Well, before it was a pretty fragmented process. You would call around and see who could accept them. Well, now that we're part of a system, then we already know who to contact. We already have the ability to share their record within minutes. And that individual, that consumer, when they show up, they're expecting them to be there. They already know their history and their background of why they're coming and what their issues are. And it just saves them a lot of wasted time of having to feel like you always have to rehash everything again on what's going on. So I think that continuity of care, or that seamless transition of care, is one of the big things. Secondly, it gives us great access to recruitment. Physicians are the lifeblood of what helps a hospital continue to run. And so we are now going to have access to some of the residents and being able to talk to the heads of those departments, like orthopedics, where we know we need another orthopedic surgeon to add to the group that we already have. This gives us that ability to tap in and get some face-to-face time, or at least the ability to let them know what our needs are and what we have to offer.
Well, it sounds like something that if you can have a seamless or close to that, it's better than some of the processes you get into where you got to dig through the whole mound of paperwork, and you know what that means. So that makes sense. Our guest is Eddie Herrman, who is the new CEO of HaysMed. You'll like this part. This program is brought to you in part by HaysMed. So we'll take a break. We're going to come back, talk about vision for the future, what you're looking forward to.
Great.
And also talk about some of the legislative hurdles you see on the horizon as well. Again, our guest, Eddie Herrman, CEO of HaysMed, back after this.
HaysMed is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, HaysMed is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. HaysMed, helping people be healthy.
Eagle Communications is your ultimate business partner. We provide business class phone with customizable features and fast, reliable internet. Your knowledgeable team at Technology Solutions has a broad base of IT services to meet your needs. Let the experts at Marketing Solutions get your message to the right people on the best platforms. The only piece missing is your business. Call Eagle Communications today at 877-61-EAGLE.
Welcome back to the second half of our program, where we're going to be talking about new visions and things in the future at HMC. Our program is brought to you by HMC. And just a special note, if you have any questions, comments, feedback from today's show, ideas for future shows, let me know. My address is gary.shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also go online on Facebook, and we're under ECTV Forum. Our guest today is Eddie Herrman, the new CEO of HaysMed. You've had a few months to take a look what's going on, but now kind of the work and the strategy and putting things in place for the next years ahead, whether it be working with KU, whether it be working with doctors in the region, whether it be developing new programs. What do you see as a vision for HaysMed?
Well, I think, for me, in the beginning, I think the vision is to make sure that no matter what we do, we know that as a system, our goal is to expand the University of Kansas health system. So we know that's a piece of it. But beyond that, we have to first make sure that HaysMed right here is as strong as it can possibly be, because it's going to be the backbone that we build upon for Western Kansas. So anything that is developed in Western Kansas will have some tie to HaysMed, and that's the way that it's really kind of structured. So in my mind, our vision for right now needs to make sure that we are the best we can be, that it's high quality care, that the patients are satisfied and we're providing a really good service, and that we have quality physicians, nurses, therapists across the board, the top level of care, which I think is the expectation from the University of Kansas health system too. That's what they're known for, is that high quality care. So that's our vision kind of right now, and where we need to go and what we need to do. I think as we continue to expand, our goal is to provide better access, as many specialists as we possibly can, You know, we've had the ability to leverage our relationship with the University of Kansas health system, and they've helped us now get an ENT group that's coming into Hays, and we haven't had ENT in a couple of years. And so I think as a system, we're learning where can we both learn from each other, because the one thing that they don't know in Kansas City is they don't really know rural medicine. And rural medicine is definitely different than it is in the metropolitan area.
And to be clear, you have a local board that you still report to, so it keeps that local focus here and not just handing that off to somebody in Kansas City at the KU Med Center.
Yes, and I think that's a key piece. Even Kansas City, as we went into this relationship, realizes they don't want to have the daily operations, and they don't want to necessarily have that worry. They want the board to set the strategy, because the board knows Western Kansas, and they know what the community needs, and they get the feedback from the community once they know they're on the board. So that's really where that's driven from, is talking with our board and what is our strategy and how do we move forward to best serve, you know, Kansans.
Talk about Topeka, Washington, the legislative process. Obviously funding, Medicare, Medicaid, all that goes into the process. Is there a way to sum that up quickly?
Well, I think probably the quickest thing for us is, I think we already see Affordable Care Act isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Yeah. So we have that, and we have to figure out how do we best live within that structure of the Affordable Care Act that we have. I do hope, and we continue to push our legislators, and that's where the public comes into play also. Medicaid expansion would go a long way. We've already foregone over $2 billion of reimbursement to help our critical access hospitals, PPS facilities throughout all of Kansas. That is what we could have collected already, and which means then we can provide better salaries, better benefits, expansion of programs, which means that then we can hire people, and it covers a lot of the costs that we don't get compensated for, and continue to take care of the people who can't afford to always pay for their care. And that's still part of our mission and part of our responsibility.
Well, Eddie, it's good to have you here in town. I have already heard good things about what's going on. Keep up the good work over there. Keep up the good work at HMC.
Thank you.
Our guest, Eddie Herrman, the new CEO at HaysMed. Thanks for watching the program. It's brought to you by the great folks at HaysMed and by Eagle Communications. Our community connected.
Are you frustrated with Wi-Fi dead zones in your home? It happens when you don't have Boost, the cutting-edge Wi-Fi solution from Eagle Communications. A Boost-certified Eagle technician maps your home, then installs a dual-band modem and router, plus discrete access points to deliver wall-to-wall Wi-Fi with no dead zones. Boost powers all your family's devices in all the places you love to live. Get Boost. Wi-Fi made simple. Only from Eagle Communications. Call today.